Lynda, it's absolutely delightful to see you here in Spain. My first question then has to be, so why are you here?
Well, apart from holiday, I've come, well, I met my husband in Moreira in 2004, so I've slowly over the years been coming backwards and forwards, but of course, ironically, the minute that I find a man with a lovely villa in Spain, I get lots of work. So I've only been able to come once a year, and it's a year actually this week that I came last year, to write my book, Lost and Found, which is about my life, obviously, and I met Steve Ashley of the Samaritans, who's a friend of Michael's, my husband's, and he asked if, well, actually I offered, which is unusual for me, because I'm quite nervous about doing these kind of public things. I like acting, but being yourself is quite a different thing altogether. Anyway, I suggested that maybe I could do a sort of evening with, and wonderfully, people bought tickets. so here I am.
And so it was your suggestion to do this as a fundraiser for Samaritans?
Yes, I think it's fantastic what Steve has done. And amazingly, and this is karma, I feel, Michael and I got married in a church called St Stephen Walbrook, which is next door to the Mansion House in the city, which is the home of, which was the original home of the Samaritans. Chad Varra actually worked out of that church, and there's a picture of him on the wall with a phone, an old black alabaster phone. So if ever that, you know, it was meant to be, and I think I do a lot of work for charity. I do Bernardo's and Alzheimer's because they apply to my life, obviously, and I write about it in the book. So it all nicely comes together, and I've been doing a book tour in conjunction with my national tour of Calendar Girls. So I'm able to combine them both, and it's kind of morphed into this evening.
You've been made patron of the Costa Blanca Samaritans, I believe.
Yes, I have.
You say that you're involved with Alzheimer's and Bernardo's because of things that have happened in your life. Is that the same for Samaritans? Yes.
In the book, which I wrote myself, I like people to know that I actually wrote it. It wasn't ghosted. I have some very bad times, we all do. And I always say as well, I'm very lucky to have been in a position to get a publisher, and I know there are probably a lot of people out there who are much better writers, authors than myself, who will probably never get the chance. And I talk very frankly in the book about, and in fact in the course of the evening, about having reached such a low that I thought about taking my own life. In fact, I tried to take my own life. And I think what's fantastic about Samaritans, though, is it isn't just about a line for people who are thinking or trying to commit suicide. They hopefully get to people before that moment. And just a voice at the end of a line. And you know, you can go mad, you can be a patron of all sorts of charities, you know, and I probably wouldn't have been a patron of something like Samaritans in England because it doesn't come directly in my line of focus, but I've been very aware that when you're in another country and people say, oh, you're so lucky to live in Spain, the sun's shining and the palm trees, that can be worse. To be depressed when you're supposed to be in paradise can be even worse, and I think a lot of people run away from things when they come to Spain. They think things are going to change inside themselves, and suddenly it doesn't happen, and you're on your own, and you can't even speak to anybody close to you. And there is Steve and his volunteers at the end of the line. So I really think it's a very worthwhile charity.
Yes, you're absolutely right. People do often consider that they're coming to paradise, and it's not like that at all. You bring your problems with you.
Of course.
So yes, they do a fantastic job, and having you as patron, I'm sure, will give them a great boost.
Well, I hope so. I think celebrity, you know, has become a dual-edged sword. So much of it is, I think, now kind of self-promoting from people, rather than using it to put back something. I mean, I'm very lucky to do a job I love, and I know that, and I'm aware of that. And if I can use it in a positive way, that's great.
It's interesting that you should mention the word celebrity there. It brings me on to something I was going to ask you anyway. You are a celebrity. You've been in the business for 40 years now, and you're very well known by the British public, and you are what is a celebrity in the true meaning of the word. What's your opinion of today's celebrities who are famous for being famous?
Nothing, yes, I know. Well, see, I'm an actress. I'm not a celebrity, I'm an actress. It's like the word star, which is so abused. A star is somebody, and there are probably 10 who command worldwide appreciation, who are stars. you know. And there are famous faces, and our television, if you like, because we didn't have a film industry, was based, I think, on a lot of really good actors that the general public know and love. And you turn on a new thing, you know, Inspector Morse, and you know David Jason, but it would be full of and what we're good at in the UK is good, solid character actors that people love, and they think, oh, she's in that, oh, we'll watch that, that's terrific. What's happened, and it started in the 90s, was when people were paid vast amounts of money, literally millions, and taken on board, then they had to find jobs for them. So, no disrespect, say, to Ross Kemp, who I think is actually a very good actor at what he does, but you don't put him in a part playing a solicitor. but they had nothing else to put him in, and then let's have him from EastEnders and get him over to ITV, and everybody started to pay lots of money, and so all the rest of us, and I include myself in that, were just pushed out. And then you suddenly had Big Brother arrive, and all the reality shows, and all the media, and all those hundreds of magazines. You look at a newsstand in a station in the UK, think, how can they? And they all feed each other. And none of it's positive. It's all nasty, little, picky, little, you know. But there are people who know nothing else except they've been created. Their lives are on television. So they have to keep reinventing themselves, doing things again so that they'll watch that and then they'll watch it. And unfortunately, I think a lot of young people, I don't think this is as big a thing as, I think it'll all come back again. People get fed up with it. But it's a small minority voice that's very loud at the moment that buys into this. And hence we have this media obsessed for nothing. It's all superficial, isn't it? There's nothing to aspire to. Nobody's aspiring to be a great designer or a great actress or a great singer. It's all instant, instant, instant. I sound like an old grumpy old woman now, don't I?
It's another interesting thing is I had that very same conversation about 3 weeks ago with a man that you're very familiar with, Michael Redfern.
Yes, my husband,
yes,
my other husband.
From the OXO commercials. I was sort of privileged to meet him as well, and he had the same sort of opinion. And I read your book as well, and the observation that really made me laugh was about Michael and the fact that he has these hundreds of thousands of silly jokes that he kept you entertained with. He still does it now.
I know, I just so admire and envy that ability to retain all those jokes. Years we had of them, 16 years.
Now we're on the subject of the OXO commercial. Of course, we have to touch on
Very
them because
nicely slipped in there.
Yeah,
yes.
Thank you. It was such a huge part of your career.
Yeah.
How do you view it? Was it good for your career? What was the upsides and downsides of it?
No, I have to say, I probably wasn't good for my career in many respects. Not my serious career, because people like to put you in boxes. And when I started the commercials in 1983, you didn't do those kind of commercials. You know, you did the odd camp one, and Joan Collins did the Martini ones, didn't she?
Yes.
And Lorraine Chase had the Luton Airport thing. And I'd worked very hard to get to the point I'd got to in 1983. And it's interesting, because I'd just taken over in All Creatures Great and Small. And I was so thrilled that I'd got this part on the BBC, and suddenly I got this commercial. So I was kind of playing against myself all the time. And half the industry, I mean, the Royal Shakespeare, I say it in the book, you know, the Royal Shakespeare is never going to give me a job. And yet, it gave me money, and it gave me freedom to do things in the theatre. I did a one-woman show, it gave me things that I could do as an actress, which I wouldn't have been able to have afforded to do otherwise, and it gave me a profile. Well, nowadays, of course, profile and the brand is everything. Whereas in those days it wasn't. And for an actor, it's very difficult to have a brand, because you're yourself, you know, and you're either in a show, a soap, or so. In a sense, I've grown up and matured and got the message that why break it, you know, why fix it if it ain't broke? And that is my thing, that people do love it, and I don't mind. And if I can use it now again, because there's talk of doing some more, or me doing something with OXO, then that's terrific, because I'm happy to do that and combine the two. I'm being philosophical about it now, you know, listen, I'm just pleased I'm still here.
You had a perfect family situation on the OXO commercials, which contrasted very strongly with your actual life at home at that time.
Yes.
How did you find the strength to carry on, to keep coming in day after day to make those commercials?
Well, this is the point. I mean, this is the point of the book, in a sense. because I know that a lot of women are in the same position as me, and I think the whole thing about abuse, domestic abuse, is it doesn't have to be ongoingly violent to completely destroy you. In fact, if anything, that the fear is the worst thing, because you live your entire life looking over your shoulder and treading on eggshells. And when you've got to go out every day and do a job of work, and especially as an actor where you've got to be up all the time and, you know, look as though you haven't got a care in the world, I lived fearfully all the time. It affected every waking moment of my life, really, when I look back. But I couldn't afford to indulge it. I had 2 small children, and I had to just get on with it. My biggest fear all through the 16 years I was married and the 16 years of the OXO commercial was that somehow, if the press found out, I'd lose my contract. Because with those big endorsements, you have to sign a thing saying if you do anything against the image, usually it involves, you know, cocaine and sex, drugs and rock and roll. And I just kept thinking, oh, you know, if they find out that I'm not this perfect mother and my real life is not perfect. Actually, of course, nowadays, with the whole reality thing, it would be a completely different thing. They'd be paying me to have that kind of life. Wouldn't it? I know, crazy. But it was hard, and that's something that has been difficult to write about legally, apart from anything else, and because my 2 sons, obviously, and they love their father, and so I've tried to write about it to inspire anybody who's in the same position without actually completely going into it in great detail. But when I do these talks, and because of the Samaritans, I feel it's important that people know that I know what I'm talking about. I've been there.
Was that your main motivation for writing the book, to help other women, or was it to help your healing process? I
think it's a bit grand to say, you know, I'm going to write about me and I'm going to help everybody else. Mostly, I think it's a good story. The real premise, of course, Lost and Found, was about being adopted. And I've spent 20-odd years working for Barnardo's, because when the boys were young, I wanted to do charities that involved children. But I could never come out, as it were, because my mum and dad were alive, and not because they didn't, they were very understanding about it, but they were very private, and in a sense, as my father said, you're our daughter, and you always will be, and there's no reason to talk about. And of course, for most of my life, I wasn't bothered whether I met my birth mother. Then when I had children, as often happens, I realised I wanted to trace back where I'd come from, etc. And that began that process, and then I found her and was reunited. And it does make a good story. And then of course, I had the marriage, and that wasn't great. And when I first started thinking about writing it, I was really in a very bad place, and there was no sort of happy ending, and I thought, this is terrible. What am I going to do? I can't write the book and end it on a real down. And then, amazingly, I came to Spain, met Mr. Spain, a.k.a. Michael Pattimore, and now I had a happy ending. So it was, if I hadn't written it now, then there was not a lot about it. And Loose Women, of course, had given me a profile again. So I came with my little package of story, and it was away we went.
Well, everybody that I've spoken to before I came to meet you today, the first thing they talk to me about, oh, Loose Women, they love it. It's hugely popular.
Unbelievable.
And the next thing out of their mouth is Mr. Spain. They love the story.
He's got his whole fan club in it. It's dreadful. Well, on the tour, a UK tour of Calendar Girls, we get to the stage door afterwards. We've been playing to about 8,000 to 10,000 women a week wherever we go, which is so exciting and brilliant. But half the time, you know, if I make the mistake of going and saying, yes, I'm here, they rush past me to
look for
him
Michael.
over here. So I'm kept in my place.
You were a part of the original West End cast, I believe.
Yes, I've actually, proud to say, I've created the role for the theatre that Helen Mirren created in the film. And I'm very proud of the fact that it's become such a huge success. And it's, if you like, it's part of my brand. I am now determined, you know, to put women over 60 out there and give them a really sort of, you know, good image.
And you're going to, interestingly, I noticed that you're going to your hometown as part of your tour. Is that pure coincidence?
Yeah, well, actually, I wasn't going to do the end of the... you're very good, aren't you? You've got it all sorted out, this lady.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, they built how amazing to build a theatre in these days when there is no... they're knocking them down all around. And Aylesbury have built this waterside theatre, and I said to the producer, oh, please, 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 then, because I wasn't going to do it another 3 months. But I said, please, I would so love. It kind of finishes the whole thing, the whole book, the whole everything. And I've got 40 old schoolmates coming to the theatre from Aylesbury High School, and it's our 50th year. We started this at the high school in 1959.
Was it a difficult decision for you to take that part because of the nudity?
Well, no. Do you know, when you read the script, it's the last thing you think about. It's such an amazing play, and because the real Calendar Girls were so fantastic, and, you know, what they must have gone through in a small village in Yorkshire to take their clothes off, and their families, and what their children thought, and all the rest of it. You're kind of caught up in that. There was a moment, actually, in the original script I was sent. It ended, like it does in the film, with all of us on the hill, with our bums to the audience, naked, doing Tai Chi. And I thought, oh, my God, I can't do this. And I said, look, I love it and everything, and I can cope with the whole photographs thing, because that's the whole, you're not showing anything, you're hiding it. But I said, I really don't want to flash my arse at the end of the play. They could all go out, run away, screaming from the theatre. So, and in fact, they changed it, because it's much more difficult to do on stage live, of course, than on a film, you know. But it's hysterical. I've never been in a play when Sian Phillips, who was in the original with me in the West End, we used to have to stand and wait for about 3 minutes for the audience to stop laughing. And she used to sidle up to me and go, I can't believe it, darling, that we can have a conversation while they're laughing. And it was just incredible.
Your son Michael's in it as well.
Yes, he's in therapy now. Poor boy. I know. The good news is, Michael, that you've got a job, because he'd left drama school. The bad news is that most of us are over 50.
Yeah, it's all right, Mum. I'll try not to look.
And he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. And he went puce. He'll hate me for telling this story. When we were doing it with lovely Gemma Atkinson, who is gorgeous, and she's the one that he has to move the buns. And we did it all very subtly, and he didn't come into the rehearsals, and we practiced where the buns were going to be and how the trolley. But obviously in the show he has to go, can you just move the buns? And of course they talk about sexual harassment. They ripped him mercifully. He just used to go puce every night, but then he got the hang of it and he loved it a lot.
So we've done the past, we've done the present. What about the future for Lynda Bellingham? What's coming up?
Well, yes, more Loose Women. Another book, hopefully. I've spent this last year. I was here. It was cut short last year because of Strictly Come Dancing. I came out. I was going to write the book. I was raring to go. I got 2 weeks into it, and I got up at 4 o'clock every morning. Michael threw me out of bed, literally, and I'd write till 12. And then have the afternoons off, and then go to bed about 9, and then get up again, because we're getting up in the dark. And so I thought, I'll do the same thing this year. I've got my story, which is lovely, because they've asked me, you know, Ebury have said if you can come up with an idea for a novel. But last year I was cut 2 weeks in. I was called to do Strictly Come Dancing, so I had to go back. So I've had my 3 weeks here, and for the first 2, I was so exhausted, because actually I have not stopped. I've worked, both of us have worked non-stop, because Michael's been setting up a new business. I decided, no, right, and this week I've kind of cracked it, so I can go home with that book, Calendar Girls, Loose Women, and possibly another tour of Calendar Girls early next year, which is hopefully going to lead into another play, which I hope to do in September.
Sounds wonderful. And on that note, Lynda, we'll let you get going, because the show is about to start, I believe.
Thank you very much. Thank you.